we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
with a cinema review.
Monday, June 26th, 8 EST, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. We have a jam-packed episode this week. We have three, not two movies we're reviewing, three movies. First time I've ever tried to do that. Hope it goes well tonight. We are reviewing Wes Anderson's latest film, Asteroid City, the new R-rated comedy from Jennifer Lawrence, No Hard Feelings, and Celine Song's directorial debut, Past Lives. I say we just get started with our first review for the night, that being Asteroid City. And joining me, one of the most perfect human beings to ever grace this earth. I saw him jamming to the 30-second intro card backstage. Cameron Redshaw.
Now.
Cameron Redshaw.
Too old for headbanging.
Too old for head. Are you like a year older than me?
Yeah, that's all.
So the age will definitely catch up to me at one point.
Yeah, in 1 year, in 365 days or less.
Oh boy, I am terrified. Doc, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk about this movie. So excited to be on the show.
That's awesome. Yeah, I say we just jump right into it. Asteroid City, directed by Wes Anderson. This is his 11th feature film. He has been directing films since 1996's Bottle Rocket. This film is about a play that is being put on called Asteroid City. We see the backstage and like the goings on of this play, but mainly the main focus, we are literally watching the play be put on in front of our eyes. As we just watch this little community, it has a rough population of like 87 people. It's on the California-Arizona border. And in this town, a little like science festival is coming up where all these kids are coming forward to like show off their new inventions. And wouldn't you know it, an alien might be coming down to Earth. Doc, what has been your history with Wes Anderson as a filmmaker, and what have been just like some standouts of his filmography for you?
Yeah, so Wes Anderson was a name I'd known since first getting into film around like 2014 when Grand Budapest came out, and that made the big splash. But I didn't see that for a couple more years, and my first Wes Anderson movie was Moonrise Kingdom. I watched that in 2016 when I was in college, and then just kind of gradually got into it more, watched Grand Budapest a few months later, and then in 2018 basically binged the rest of his filmography, starting with a movie very near and dear to my heart, Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is now, after however many viewings, at least a half a dozen, spamming it in every deep cut situation I could possibly find. I finally determined that it's my favorite animated movie like ever. I just think there's so much charm and whimsy and heart to it, and it just like stop motion just works so well for Wes Anderson's style. It's like he's always using humans like puppets in his live action movies anyway, and it's just such. And Roald Dahl was my favorite author as a kid, and stop motion, yeah, it's like my favorite style of animation. It just all makes for a very Redshaw time. That being said, I wouldn't say I'm the hugest Wes Anderson fan as an overall. I know a lot of people in this community are bigger fans than I am. Yeah, love Fantastic Mr. Fox, love Grand Budapest. I'm a huge champion of Isle of Dogs, actually. I love Isle of Dogs, which I feel like I'm sometimes a little alone on that. And Royal Tenenbaums used to be in my top 100, but I just rewatched it and had to break Payson's heart and say that I didn't love it on rewatch. But still a great movie. The best thing I could say about Wes Anderson is that his worst movie I would call good but unremarkable.
No, that's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Wes Anderson has an incredibly consistent filmography if you are into his style. I was introduced to him around 2009 when Fantastic Mr. Fox came out. I was a big fan of that book, and I remember seeing that in theaters, and I remember enjoying it at the time. I didn't quite love it like I do now. That was actually one that I really grew to love when you reintroduced it to, I think, a lot of people in this community. So I have to thank you for that, because honestly, that's probably my second favorite Wes Anderson movie, and I think that is easily his funniest movie, like joke per joke, pound for pound. I think just everything that movie is getting into it. Yeah, like you said, Royal Tenenbaums is my personal favorite. I just think that is like, the reason I love that one is because, yes, while there is a lot of whimsy and heart to it, there's so much like melancholic depression with that one. Like everyone is just so broken. And I like, my favorite Wes Anderson movies are the ones that are both cheery but are super dark when you really think about it. And like Royal Tenenbaums is that. Honestly, like Fantastic Mr. Fox is kind of that. Like when you think of the character of Mr. Fox, like he's he's kind of a messed up dude when you really get like to like the nitty gritty of his character.
He's incredibly self-destructive. Yeah.
Oh, insanely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe my one Wes Anderson hot take is, while I really enjoy it, Rushmore has never been one that has been like an absolute favorite of mine. Yeah, I think it's just like, I know there are so many people that think like Max Fisher is like one of the great film characters, and he's just a guy that like has never quite connected with me as much as I would love to. But for the most part, I think Wes Anderson is a very, very consistent filmmaker. And honestly, I think Asteroid City is probably my favorite movie he's made in the past 10 years since Grand Budapest Hotel. Doc, real quick, just quick thoughts on Asteroid City.
Yeah. I wouldn't quite agree with that because I love Isle of Dogs. I love dogs. I love stop motion. Don't at me. But no, I thought this was really great. I don't think I'm going to be quite as high on it as you are, but I think, yeah, very, very good. I love his style with this sort of framework. I think this framework works so well with him. Like, that's one of my favorite things about Grand Budapest is like, since it's a story in a story in a story, like his whimsy and his exaggeratory nature of how he tells the story just makes so much more sense, and it just like fits perfectly. And this one where it's like, yeah, it's a play, but it's also like the people putting on the production, just kind of the layers. Oddly, like the more confusing amount of layers, the more it kind of works for Wes Anderson. And the movie's just stunning to look at. I love the color palette. I love the blues and the oranges so much. And it's something about it. It's just so satisfying to just watch how Wes Anderson frames movies. It's going to be like a 4-star almost by default, just with those elements for me.
The thing I love the most about Wes Anderson is all of his films just have a tendency to just put me in like a calming mood. Like just looking at it, it looks like I'm looking at like art, and I just feel like I just feel at home and calm when I'm looking at these films. And like, yeah, like you said, the production is incredible, and I think the fact that like it's technically you're watching a play, so like certain things look more artificial, and it's kind of given a reason as to why it looks like that, because you are literally watching like a theater production. I think that's so much fun. And like when it does go backstage and when the color is taken out, it just adds that jarring nature to it. But yeah, just like the color of like pink and like certain like things of like what like Maya Hawke's like yellow dress she's wearing in the movie. Just I can just imagine that. Tom Hanks's like white hair, I think, is just perfect. Like he's always at a mastery of just color and production in his movies, and I think this movie just once again just shows his evolution as a filmmaker. Like if you are not a Wes Anderson fan, this movie is not going to do anything to sway you. But if you like him, this almost feels like the pinnacle of him from like a technical level, personally.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely a visual treat, and something I feel like was a little different for this as a Wes Anderson movie. There's it it knows when to be quiet, which it's got like, because when I think of Wes Anderson, I think of a really breakneck pace, and like my two favorites, Fantastic Mr. Fox and Grand Budapest, are very much like that. But this has a lot of beats where it just is able to slow down, and it just like shows two characters looking at each other, and it just like has a lot of confidence in that sense, and it really works for this movie. Doesn't make for the greatest theater experience, especially when some people in my theater, I don't think they know who Wes Anderson was, because there was one scene that happened, and afterwards when it like got completely silent and cut to black, one guy behind me was like, "That was weird."
That's stupid. That's stupid.
Annoying. It's like they heard a new Tom Hanks movie was out, and the dad went to see it. But
what an awful sell, yo! What if the whole family's this new Tom Hanks movie? But yeah, it's so funny because like Alexander Desplat, I want to say this is now the 5th movie he's composed for Wes Anderson, and the score isn't as like it's not as memorable to me as some of his other scores, but I think it's because it's not used quite as much, because mainly you're just watching like this little town just like do you know which filmmaker this honestly reminds me a lot of? Watching this movie, I got a lot of Robert Altman vibes.
That's fair.
Like watching just this tight little community, and you're going from character to character and just watching their little conversations. I would be very interested to hear what Wes Anderson feels about Robert Altman's films, because like I was getting big like Nashville energy and like Shortcuts energy, and like I love those movies. So that
slaps. I love
excellent. Yeah.
Shortcuts is like proto Magnolia though, so it's like made for you.
Yeah, for real. If you've not seen Shortcuts, it's tough to find, but it's so good.
Shout out for the Criterion Blu-ray, and you probably won't regret it. I shouldn't guarantee anything, but
hey, Criterion sale starts this Saturday, so you can start getting them for only $20.
Not spawned.
Yeah. But yeah, Wes Anderson is known for using similar cast members in a lot of his movies, and you get a lot of returning faces in this film. I think one of the first questions I want to ask you is, what is your opinion on because like he often gets sometimes criticized for keep on returning to the same well. I personally really enjoy that, because it weirdly feels like I'm seeing old friends again whenever his actors like show up for like 4 or 5 lines and then just leave, and I think they all just seem like they're having a ton of fun. And like, who are some of your standouts in the cast?
In this cast, Jason Schwartzman always understands the assignment in Wes Anderson movies. So he's very good. He plays it very dry, doesn't give it like too many layers, but he actually gives it a lot more layers when he's the actor character.
Yeah.
I think he's really a standout in the black and white scenes. So I think he's great. I hope Jeffrey Wright's in every Wes Anderson movie from now on. He's like designed to be in Wes Anderson movies. I love him so much. Yeah, it's hard to pick out favorites in here. It's really cool to see Tom Hanks in a Wes Anderson movie.
I was going to say that because I believe that part was originally going to be Bill Murray, and I was
wondering why Bill Murray wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't really know why he wasn't in there, but I do know that he was supposed to be the Tom Hanks character in this movie. Tom Hanks plays Jason Schwartzman's father in this film, and while I think Bill Murray might understand like the comedic elements of Wes Anderson a little more, I just think you wouldn't get like that like heartfelt like look that like Tom Hanks's eyes have just from us like loving Tom Hanks as a person. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It would feel a little more sarcastic if it was Bill Murray in the role. Tom Hanks gives it a little more of a genuine feel, I would say. But I mean, it's hard to say. We won't live in that universe. But yeah, I can't really single out one person But those are a few. I really like all the kids.
I think
all the kids were great.
Yeah. Wes Anderson, obviously, with movies like Moonrise Kingdom, he's known for working with kids, and I love all the child performances in this film. I singled out Jake Ryan and Grace Edwards, who play the children of Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson's character, who sort of start to develop like a little romance, like just because of how smart they are. I think it's just so much fun. Like I think that's just one of the charms of Wes Anderson movies is seeing these characters that have this so much like intelligence of like art history or science history, just talking and just spouting out this facts like super fast. I always just find that super charming. Like you said, I think Jason Schwartzman is excellent in this film. Just thinking like, I'm not sure if it was his first film, but like his first major role being in Rushmore, and that like for 25 years we've seen him in so many of these movies, and I just watching him now be like the elder statesman in these films, I just think is so much fun because like it just a certain scene that just makes me laugh so hard is where he's explaining to his kids that their mom has died, and his kids are just like, are we orphans now? Well, no, I'm
here.
Yeah, I'm here. I just find that really, really funny. Not the biggest laugh I had in the movie, and I'll tell you the biggest. My favorite laugh came from when a certain character was in a scene when they shouldn't have been there, and then they
there was an incredible like audience response to a certain photo. I'll call it a photo op in the movie, just to avoid spoiling it. But it's just like this tiny gesture that says so much and is so funny. And there's this probably one of my favorite running bits in a Wes Anderson movie is in this movie about someone. That always leads to the most incredible visual gags. It's so good. It's great.
And I also really loved Maya Hawke and Rupert Friend. Maya Hawke plays a teacher named June, and she's a very very mild-mannered like science teacher that are teaching all these kids. And Rupert Friend plays this singer who definitely has the hots for Maya Hawke, and Maya Hawke very clearly has the hots for Rupert Friend but doesn't want to admit it. And just all their scenes together, I think, are really, really fun. But yeah, just like bringing in Steve Carell for like a few scenes, bringing in Sophia Lillis for a few scenes. I just think that's so much fun. The last scene that Jason Schwartzman has with the actress that plays his wife, excellent.
That's my favorite scene in the movie because just like I'm trying to be as vague as possible. Just like his character in the movie, you're kind of like, what's this all getting to? And then they like, it's so hard to describe it, like without spoiling what makes this scene so good, but it's fantastic and it adds so much context, and it's great.
I think the movie has an excellent way of portraying like art imitating life, and I think that's the main theme that Wes Anderson is really trying to get at. And I think that last scene contextualizes so many things with what we see with Edward Norton and Adrian Brody out in the real world, like kind of being like the directors of this piece. And while I was watching it, I was kind of thinking like, okay, how is this all going to tie together? And then by the end, I was like, okay, I completely see where this is going. That's why I honestly think this feels like one of the more adult Wes Anderson movies. Like movies like Bottle Rocket and Rushmore, they honestly feel like a little shoddy, and like I love them for that. But like when I watch this, it really feels like the evolution of a filmmaker in a way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It, as much as I think it's on the lower echelon, like Life Aquatic feels like where he really tuned into like his visual style and his visual finesse. And ever since then, it's just been each live action movie has been more and more. I wasn't huge on French Dispatch, but I can't deny that it looks great.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just like looking at my notes, something we should probably touch on the science fiction aspect of this movie. Halfway through the film, this isn't really a spoiler because it happens halfway through. Aliens I should probably put a spoiler. An alien arrives to essentially what they think might be a threat, and I love when this alien comes. The entire time I'm watching the rest of it, like, no, I'm thinking like, is this movie gonna have a really dark ending where everyone just kind of dies? And we don't get that, and I think that's kind of what makes it so good. What did you think about the sci-fi element?
I loved it. I really like the final aspect. I like something innocent comes to Earth and we all just freak out about it, even though it's not a big deal. I love that sort of thing. And that was my biggest laugh in the movies when the alien shows up and it takes the asteroid and Jason Schwartzman's character like starts to get ready to take a picture and the alien just is like holding it like this and it goes it gets posing for a picture and it was so funny. It was so good. But
and then towards the end, when the alien comes back down with the asteroid, I legit had thought like, oh my gosh, did he place like a bomb in there? But no, he literally just wanted to just mark it for inventory, so he knew where it was at. And then each time, once again, just the way how he shoots his movies, the shot of the UFO just leaving and just going back up and just leaving is so satisfying because it's just boom, boom, and just it's perfect.
I also love that the only moment, well, I guess there's the one scene towards the end that I don't really care for. But like the one moment of color in the black and white scenes is when Adrian Brody is like playing with the prop and he like tests the green lights and you're just like, and I'm convinced that that's the actual prop that Wes Anderson probably used for the shot.
Knowing how much he loves to just like make his movies feel like dioramas and hand build everything, I could totally see him doing that. But yeah, I think that's everything that I personally want to say. Is there anything you want to bring up about this movie before we head into our final ratings?
Not particularly. Yeah, I just, especially with the last half, I really like what they do with the kids and how they kind of use some of their science projects as like they weaponize them.
It's so much fun.
It feels very Isle of Dogs, actually, like in how they're trying to kind of overthrow the system and like the kids try to take over and take authority into their own hands. And at least there's some really funny exchanges between one of the kids and Jeffrey Wright's character towards the end. So yeah, I thought that was great. I
love how I love how Jason Schwartzman's daughters are kind of like the like child versions of the witches from Macbeth. I think that's just so much fun. Like towards the end, where they get so obsessed with their mother's ashes. Okay. Before we head into final ratings, we haven't talked about it too much. What do you think about Scarlett Johansson in this film?
I thought she was good. I guess the character she plays is the point of her is to really be subdued. Subtle. So like she honestly comes off as one of the more dry characters and performances, but since the Wes Anderson movie, it works. It definitely works. But I wouldn't say she was a standout for me at least. But
no, I would definitely agree. She plays sort of like a Marilyn Monroe-esque type actress, and yeah, like Red Shaw said, she's very subdued in everything she says. She's a very like low tone. She begins a connection. She like forms a connection with Jason Schwartzman's character, and you see that sort of progress throughout the film. But yeah, I'm with you. She wasn't quite the standout that you would think, but at the same time, this is her first film, and Wes Anderson is often known for taking an actor, putting them in like a smaller role in one film, and then maybe later down the line they get like a bigger role in another film.
Yeah, but I do like kind of the layers of her being an actress in the black and white movies, and then in the play she is also an actress.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of funny. I will say, I guess, before we get into ratings, so it's not confusing, there were a couple scenes that didn't quite land for me. Like, if we're still doing spoiler, towards the end, you can't wake up if you never fall asleep felt a little out of place. And I'm maybe I'm missing something, but I didn't quite see what the point of that scene was. I don't know if you have any insight.
Yeah, that is definitely one I've been trying to think more and more about. I'm definitely planning on watching this film again, so I want to go back and revisit those. There were definitely some scenes outside of definitely in like the black and white world where I'm trying to think like, what does that entirely mean? Thankfully, I think there are just so many like this movie operates in like a sort of like vignette and just watching this community like live. It kind of doesn't ruin the film for me in that way, but I totally get where you're saying. Like, I think that was probably my least favorite scene in the movie as well, and I want to think about that more.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I didn't mention Bryan Cranston earlier. I love Bryan Cranston, and I think he's also perfect for Wes Anderson movies because, like, I'm gonna keep plugging Isle of Dogs. He's great in Isle of Dogs. And he gets to like show a lot of emotion in Isle of Dogs. And this one, he gets to play it super straight and super dry. And it still works. And he's another one I hope becomes like a Wes Anderson staple.
He is so, yeah.
And his little cameo in the play.
Yeah. He is so great as the narrator. And when he shows up in the play, and he's just like, oh, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. He just walks away. Is so funny, and probably the biggest laugh I had throughout the film. All right, so we rate movies here on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes. 0 is awful, abysmal, just an absolute horrid piece of cinema, and 10 is exceptional, like view changing, one that will remind you why you love movies in the first place. Doc, if you were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, what would you give this movie?
I would give this movie 8.5. Like Federico Fellini's 8.5. Yeah, I thought it was great. When I had a really hard time rating it on Letterboxd because it was sort of like Moonrise Kingdom. Like, it's very high, like 4-star movie. And I'm sure on rewatch it might break the 4.5. It's just like that one scene that really didn't work for me. A few other beats that like didn't fully land, but overall, like I obviously respect the craft, and I think this movie was just a wonderful time. So,
absolutely, yeah. I think I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 9.5 out of 10. I just.
To Federico Fellini's
sequel 9.5. No, not the sequel to 8.5. The sequel to 9. Sequel to 8.5. Well, think of a different genre for 9.5. But no, I absolutely just love the cozy nature of this film. I just think Wes Anderson has just mastered his like production so well. Like you said, I don't think there's really like a standout character, but I think that works to the movie's benefit. Because I just think I just love the community nature of this movie. I just love the tone this film sets up. Like there are a few things that keep it from being like my absolute like favorite Wes Anderson movie, but I do think I would say this is top tier for his films for me. And honestly, like with movies like Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, Fantastic Mr. Fox, phenomenal ending needle drop, just ending with such a fun song and just like great like perfect just feeling as you just walk out of the theater.
Everyone in my theater stayed the whole way through the Roadrunner part of the credits. We were all transfixed on the Roadrunner dancing. It was so good.
But yeah, before we transition to our next review, we're gonna open up to some questions and comments. I'm actually gonna ask Redshaw a question. I asked you this in a chat earlier. You didn't quite have an answer. I'm going to ask you now. Who is your favorite character in a Wes Anderson film?
God.
I can give mine first.
I spent so many days thinking about it, and I never came up with a great answer. I'll because it'll be one of the Fantastic Mr. Fox characters. But then do I pick Mr. Fox because I think he has the best arc in that movie, but also Ash has a great arc, and I think is really says a lot. But yeah, I'll probably just go Mr. Fox. Because I mean his whole arc kind of is the theme of that movie is like is your nature going to be too overpowering? Like, are you going to go back to what you think you're good at, even if it's not good for people around you? And I love that. I love his manner of speaking, George Clooney's performance, and all the "you're cussing with me," and yeah, just the situations he finds himself in. But like I said, love Ash. Love all the Tenenbaums. I think Chaz and Richie are my favorite Tenenbaums. Obviously, M. Gustav H is fantastic. And Chief, shout out to Isle of Dogs. Chief, love Chief.
I personally think Isle of Dogs is just okay. I wish I liked it as much as some other people do, but I totally get the appeal with that movie. Yeah, I think Mr. Fox is an excellent choice. Ash was one of the people I thought of, but you alluded to it. I'm picking one of the Tenenbaums. Richie Tenenbaum is my personal favorite. Like I said, I like my Wes Anderson movies where they have their sense of quirkiness, but there's also sort of like a melancholic edge to that to the movie. And I don't think there's a character more melancholic than Richie Tenenbaum. Like the first moment we see him just bombing a tennis match because he learned that because he's dealing with the fact that he's been in love with his adopted sister since he was a child, and just watching Luke Wilson like portray that throughout the movie. Like it's something that could come off as so weird, but Wes Anderson somehow finds the way to like play with it in just the perfect way. I think that's also in part due to I think Gwyneth Paltrow is phenomenal as Margot. Like that first time they see each other, when Margot's coming back from the train station, I think is great. The needle in the hay scene where Richie learns everything about Margot and just slits his wrist, I think is excellent. Yeah, I think if I were to pick one character, it would be Richie Tenenbaum.
That's fair. Yeah, I do love the melancholic nature of all three Tenenbaum children. Yeah. I think just growing up in the 5 years between watches, I think Chaz's story like spoke to me just a little bit more. Just kind of that tragedy and that jaded nature of like him being he's the oldest, right? He's the oldest kid. Yeah. Him being the oldest kid and like having this protective instinct over the family, and like protective instincts for other reasons over his kids. That just all really spoke to me, and just how he changes and bonds with Royal over the course of the movie, I thought was really special. But yeah, there's a lot of great choices. I do like Max Fisher, but I will say he's kind of irritating by design. Which is partly why I don't love Rushmore. Yeah, like you said, like some people do.
Yeah, my whole thing with watching Rushmore, and I think that's kind of the point, is like when I'm watching it, I'm like, is this character a sociopath? Like there are points where I feel like I'm watching the early stages of like a serial killer. Like I personally still really like Rushmore. Like it's a very high 4-star film, but it's just one that has just never gotten quite to that point.
It's the Dear Evan Hansen of Wes Anderson.
It's way better than that, but I totally get
I feel bad. I love the play, Dear Evan Hansen. I have not watched the movie yet because I'm terrified too from everything I've heard.
It's not a very good movie, but I have not seen the play, and I will take your word for it that the musical is great. Cameron, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Before you leave, is there anything you'd like to plug?
I have nothing to plug. I'm on some of the socials as Dr. Redshot, but I don't really post anywhere. Sometimes if I think of a funny 1-sentence Letterboxd review, it'll go there, but it's not often. Don't follow me.
Okay, don't follow him, but go and look at his Splendor in the Grass review.
That is
it's a great
my pride and joy.
Doc, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a little while, and I'm so happy that we had this opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cam. Man, Red Shaw's just such a lovable guy. Thank you once again for coming on, buddy. But we're going to be moving on right into our next movie that we're talking about, and that is No Hard Feelings, directed by, I want to make sure I get this man's name right, Gene Stupnitsky, director of Good Boys. This is the guy, Good Boys movie that came out 4 years ago. Really great R-rated comedy, and this is another R-rated comedy. It stars Jennifer Lawrence as Maddie. She's kind of like a struggling Uber driver that just lost possession of her car, and in doing so, she's going to be losing possession of her house because she cannot pay the bills for her house without a car. So she takes a job on Craigslist from two parents that are trying to essentially have their son come out of their shell. Their son, played by one of his first performances, Andrew Barth Feldman. He plays Percy. He is a new high school graduate that is going to be going to Princeton. Very antisocial, doesn't really care about relationships, doesn't really care about sex, and both of Percy's parents essentially hire Jennifer Lawrence's character to essentially date his brains out, as you saw in the trailer. We don't really get too many hard R comedies in theaters anymore. I just think most of those movies tend to go to streaming. And so it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see like a movie that is this raunchy in theaters. And what I will say is Jennifer Lawrence is excellent here. I personally think she's an actress that kind of got a bad rap in the earlier parts of her career. She won an Oscar very early at the age of 22. That is the second youngest anyone has ever been, winning that Best Lead Actress award. But she kind of got pigeonholed into certain franchises, whether it's the Hunger Games, whether it's the X-Men movies. She obviously stopped caring about the X-Men movies probably a few films into it, where it just kind of affected everyone's like view of her as an actress. She's also one of those people that sort of like tried to be a little bit too relatable on like the red carpets and stuff. So it kind of rubbed people the wrong way. But I think she's a great actress. Like whether it's Silver Linings Playbook, whether it's Joy, whether it's Mother, like I think she's really, really great in Mother. I think she's a really great actress. Causeway, which came out last year. I know most people think Brian Tyree Henry is the best performance in that movie, and they are correct. But I think Lawrence is also really, really great. But we've never seen her do like hardcore comedy like this, and she sells it. Like I think the character of Maddie is such like a screw up and just doesn't have their life together. And I think it's really funny just watching her like act in these certain situations where like she knows how crappy her life is, but she's just trying to get from one situation to the next. Like the first time when she looks at this Craigslist ad, she's like, wow, these parents are insane. What else do I have to do? And it's just she adds a lot of humor to this role. I think Andrew Barth Feldman, great new young actor. I think he's really great at playing this timid character, and I think he's probably the most consistent actor throughout the film, because as the movie goes on and as Percy and Maddie, which is Jennifer Lawrence's character, kind of starts to connect a little bit more, you can definitely tell that he starts to get like false hopes, because he doesn't know that the reason she's talking to him is essentially because his parents said, hey, we will pay you if you date our son, and he doesn't realize that. He starts getting false illusions, and it's fun just seeing him like there's a really funny scene where he gets like drunk in a limo, and he just completely loses all of his bearings, and I think that's really, really funny. I think the first half of this movie knows what it's trying to be, and that is just kind of like a turn your brain off comedy, which can be good from time to time. I think the funniest scene in this movie is it's kind of alluded to in the trailer. It's a scene where they're on the beach, where Maddie's really trying to get Percy to do something like fun and dangerous. She says like, hey, why don't we go like skinny dipping? And she eventually gets them into the water, and then these like teens come and try to steal their clothes, and just Maddie just gets out of the water and just literally just suplexes these guys and just absolutely just like knocks their blocks off, just like crushing their jaws. And I think that's really, really funny. And I wish the movie would have had like more over the top moments like that. But I think the issue is the second half kind of delves a little bit into too much cliches. There's a really weird element that is added like halfway through the movie, where you learn that Percy had like this nanny who's a guy who's maybe like a few years older than him, and he doesn't like that Maddie is getting closer to Percy, and you think that's going to come back later in the movie, but it doesn't really come back that much. With this movie being a liar reveal, like it's a movie that starts out essentially based on a lie. You can essentially tell how the third act of this movie is going to go. Percy realizes that Maddie is lying. There's a big like misunderstanding. They kind of go their separate ways. And by the time we are seeing Maddie sort of like start to get her life back together, I think we as an audience just don't really care that much. And I think just the movie loses a lot of its energy that it has in that first half, because I think they blew out a lot of their best jokes in the first half, and it just kind of makes the second half, which is just loaded with cliches, not that funny because we're not laughing as much. Also, I just gotta say, like, as much as I raved about that beach scene, the ending like set piece joke I think is just so stupid and so over the top that it's just kind of you just kind of end up rolling your eyes at the majority of it. It involves a character on top of a hood of a car, just like trying to hold on as another character is trying to swerve them off while they're driving through like a beach. And it's like, am I watching am I watching a normal comedy, or am I watching an action comedy? And just those tones just don't really mix. But yeah, like I definitely think the first half of this movie has energy, but the fact that it doesn't really end as strong as it starts definitely sullies my opinion on the film quite a bit. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I'm gonna give it. I think I'll give it a 6. I think the first half, and I think Jennifer Lawrence really helps elevate this movie to at least be passable. But I don't think it really gets much past that, especially with the second half just not really being that funny. Once this movie comes out on streaming, I think it would be a decent watch to just watch on TV. But yeah, unless you have just nothing to do on a weekend, I wouldn't really recommend seeing this film in theaters. Well, normally that would be the end of our show, but I say we actually have a third movie this week. I was not going to be talking about a third movie, but I saw it and I just said I had to talk about it. It is a film called Past Lives. It is directed by Celine Song. It is her directorial debut. It is about two friends from South Korea. One of them named Nora and the other named Haesung. Nora's Korean name was named Na Young, but around 20 minutes in the movie, we see that Na Young actually moved to New York with her family to immigrate, and we learned that Na Young wanted to become a successful playwright, so she took the name of Nora. Then in the second half of the movie, which takes place 12 years later, this movie is set within 3 chapters. The first chapter takes place when these two characters are 12. The second chapter takes place when the two characters are 24, and they sort of start to reconnect online. Haesung kind of admits that he still hasn't quite gotten over Nora and might want to start an online like a long distance relationship. And then the next chapter is when they are in their 30s. Nora has now been married, and for the first time since they were kids, Haesung is coming to New York to visit her and to see maybe where their lives are and did they essentially make the right choices. I'm just going to get right out in front of it. I think this movie is incredible. And the fact that this is Celine Song's first movie and it has so much heart and so much empathy to it, I think speaks volumes. I believe Celine Song said, because Celine Song is someone that was originally in theater. This is her first movie that she's ever made. She admitted that a lot of this has to do with some things that have happened in her personal life, with immigrating to America, and I think that's just incredible. And the emotion and the humanity that is portrayed in this film is excellent. The relationship between these two characters is so believable, and there's a part of you that knows like they probably shouldn't be together, like they just aren't quite quite right for each other, considering Nora doesn't want to go back to Korea. But there's also a part of you that just feels like, are they made for each other? Are they supposed to actually be together? And just the themes that this film touches on. In the second chapter of the film, we learn that why this movie is called Past Lives, and it's because Hae-sung believes that the reason why they are meeting now is because they have met in past lives, and maybe in past lives she was a princess and he was a servant and they fell in love, or maybe he was a knight and she was a villager and they fell in love, and all these different aspects of their lives. But he always believes that they were always meant to find each other, and maybe this is the life where they finally are able to get together. But they unfortunately can't until maybe that third act. I think Greta Lee, who plays the adult version of Nora, is so good in this movie. She's essentially introduced in the second half when we see Nora in her 20s, and throughout most of those scenes, she is speaking in her in Korean, because she's just having conversations with Hae-sung. And then in the third act, we start to see her take up most of her scenes in English, because she's talking with her husband, played by John Magaro, that they met on sort of like a writer's retreat in while they were in their 20s. But yeah, just the scenes she has with TU, who plays Hae-sung, who is also excellent. Both the scenes where they're on their computers, but especially that final act of the movie where Hae-sung has made it to New York, and she essentially decides, you know what, he traveled all this way, I would like to at least hang out with him for like a day or two while he's in town. I think is so powerful. And just watching them like go through New York and see these images and see like these things that like makes New York New York. Like she says, like, I've never really been to Ellis Island, do you want to go? And they go, and they just sort of have this connection. And there are certain scenes where like there's not a word really spoken, but they're just looking at each other. And I think Greta Lee is so good at like acting with her face and just saying so much with so little dialogue. If you're someone that needs like maybe characters to like talk to each other a little bit more, I totally get like this movie might not super connect with you, but I love it when movies are able to convey just a ton without needing to put in like a ton of dialogue, to when it's able to have characters say a lot without saying anything. I think is excellent. John Magaro, who plays Nora's husband, I think has a very interesting role in this movie, because I think throughout the movie, in certain other movies, you might not like this guy, because you might think, oh man, he's a barrier between Nora and Hae-sung getting together. But it doesn't really feel that way, because I think the movie wisely shows that Nora and her husband are happy. Now, Nora kind of questions, like, is this the right guy for me? Should we be together? Because we learn in the final act of the movie that maybe Nora and her husband got married a little early, because there were some green card things that were happening with her. So she wanted to get that sort of security in America, because throughout the film, we learn that like in the first half, she wants to win the Nobel Prize. In the second half, she wants to win the Pulitzer. And just she has all these high ambitions due to her being a writer. And I think that's really, really fascinating. But yeah, we learned that she's not unhappy with her life, but she's always going to have that ties that she had in her past life with Hae-sung, because he represents the Korean nature of her. And I think that's just so incredible of what this film touches on. This movie's around an hour 40 minutes. I think it's really wonderfully paced. I think each chapter gets better and better as it goes along, and I think when you have movies that are divided like this, I think that really, really speaks to it. One of the best endings to a movie I've seen in a while. I will not spoil what the final decision that Nora makes, but it's one that I think the movie had to make, and I think it makes it in the perfect way. The final walk that Nora has with Hae-sung, essentially to his car towards the end, I think is just so incredible, and just what this what Hae-sung's final line is going to be one that I'm going to be remembering for a long, long time. And just the music choice at the end, just how it shoots New York, I think is really, really incredible. And yeah, just the scene of these characters just walking back and forth in the final scene, I think really, really is effective. Going into final ratings, I have not given this score yet, but I think this is now the time. I'm going to give this movie a 10 out of 10. This is my first 10 of the year, and if you've been paying attention, I can say this has been my favorite movie of the year. I do not see a world where this movie doesn't get nominated for Best Picture. I think we are going to be talking about this movie throughout the rest of the year going into award season. If you have not seen this movie, please go see it. If it's playing in your city, I can now finally start telling people I've been wanting to share my thoughts for this review. But yeah, this is just one that I've been thinking since I saw it last week, and I could not recommend it highly enough. It's just one of those movies that after you see it, you just quietly go to your car, go home, and you just think about all the decisions you've made in your life. And these are the types of movies that I love. These are the reasons I love movies. Asteroid City, No Hard Feelings, Past Lives. Thank you all for watching this show this week. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. It helps us out a lot. We have new content coming out here every day. Just an incredible community we've made of people that just love movies. Next week, we are reviewing the 5th entry in the Indiana Jones franchise, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, as well as the new DreamWorks film, Ruby Gillman. Join me next week for 2 exciting reviews. I have not quite reached out to the guests for Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, but I think I know who I'm going to be wanting to get on that show, and I'm sure it's going to be a really, really great review. This has been an incredible show. I reviewed 3 movies this week, and I don't think this is my longest review, so doing well on time. But for everyone watching, thank you. Have a great night.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.